The problem with multiculturalism is that there's too much Islam. In Britain, there's too much Islam. Now, first of all, I love diversity. I'm very easily bored, I've got a short attention span, and I love experiencing new things. I love trying new food, discovering new literature, art, and finding out about other people's customs and traditions. That's wonderful. I love diversity. I hope everyone does, because life would be very boring otherwise. And that's one reason why we all travel, you know. You want to go to a different country to be immersed in the sights and the sounds and the smells of that country, the language, the food. You want to see the architecture, you want to see the place, the current place and time which their history has brought them to, that people and that land. That's travelling, that's how we travel. But in London, a place like London today, which is just a multicultural shithole, you come here and there's nothing that's specifically unique, nothing uniquely English about it. And so, I mean, what would be uniquely English anyway? Is it the little pubs, the beer, the football? It might not sound like much, but it's English, you know. The difference between London and New York in terms of multiculturalism. I lived in New York when I was younger for 6 years. And yes, in New York, you know, you have different areas, different boroughs that different cultures, different groups of people have settled in, and they've brought the flavour of their culture to that area, to that borough, whether Irish, Spanish, Mexican. They've brought something of their own culture to the new culture for everyone else to enjoy and participate in. And when you live in New York, you can go to the Irish area, the Italian area, and they're all fun places to hang out and to drink and to have food and to meet new people. It's all great. But that's not the case in London. You know, in London, what we're seeing with too much Islam is that outlying boroughs, the minute you leave central London, the kind of Trafalgar Square, Covent Garden area, Chelsea's an exception, the majority of outlying London boroughs are turning into cultural wastelands. Places like Stepney Green, Whitechapel, Woolwich. From Paddington, you go 7 miles up the Harrow Road towards Harrelson and Wembley and beyond. Even all the way to East End, all the way out to Ilford. Cultural desert lands, wastelands. There's no reason to go there because it's heavily Islamic. And even moving Shepherd's Bush out as well, when a place becomes too heavily Islamic, what you see is that fun things cease to exist, pubs close down, the high street changes. When an area becomes too heavily Islamic, what you see is that fun things cease to exist, or they become very sparse, and people say, oh well, you can still go to Whitechapel today, but you give Whitechapel 5 more years and there's no reason to go there. Gay people I know don't go near Whitechapel, there's nothing to do. The high street has changed. In areas that are heavily Islamic, what you see, the shops are comprised, there's not much more than rotting fruit and veg, burqas, halal butchers, there's a mosque, an Islamic bookstore. That's generally it, there's not much more on offer, that's essentially all they have. And the other problem I have with these Islamic areas, people say there's no-go zones in London. They're not really no-go zones, they're kind of tread carefully zones, because at night time, and even during the day, it's very patriarchal, it's very heavily handed male. What's visible, what's on the street is predominantly male, gangs of men. So that's not, for me that's not fun, there's no diversity there, it's all men, I don't like that. And the burqa, get back to the burqa, you know, people say it's inclusive, all the rest of it. If I see someone with a burqa on, that's a closed door, that's a brick wall. At no point am I enticed to go up to a person with a burqa and say hi, or can you tell me where such and such is, or do you have the time? It's a closed door, it's a brick wall, it's saying keep back, I don't want to know you. That's what a burqa says. And God knows what they're saying beneath that burqa. They could be mouthing at you, you fucking cunt. You don't know what they're saying, you don't know what's going on. Culturally, for my culture, the burqa has no place. And also people going about immigration, immigration. Well, you know, when I lived in New York, I was an illegal immigrant, even though I'd found a woman who was willing to employ me, and she took me to a lawyer, and we tried to get the green card, the working papers. But at that point in my life, I hadn't yet been to university, I didn't have a degree, so I was considered to be an unskilled worker, and so they wouldn't take me in. That was fair dues. I didn't foot stomp, I just stayed illegally. You know, I didn't think it was a racial issue. Nothing like that. And also, now that I'm living in England, it's still Britain, but still I'm Scottish. I could be considered to be an immigrant in England. Now, I could do what a lot of the other immigrants are doing. I could be recreating a mini Scotland in England. I could be screaming for Scottish law to be applied on English people. I could be forcing haggis and shortbread down everyone's throats. But I'm not. I've come to England to experience English culture. If I wanted to be immersed in Scottish culture, I would have stayed in Scotland. And my word to other immigrants is that if you're so nostalgic, and if you're missing your homeland so much, you need to go back to it and leave England alone. Let it be. So yeah, multiculturalism, immigration, diversity. Someone said to me, well, you can't stop change, things change, and that's amazing, I love it. We all need change, things have to go forward. But whenever change happens, you hope that the change is for the better, not for the worst. And the change that we are seeing in Britain today is for the worst, it's not for the better.